All right. Welcome to the last Free Friday coaching call of the year.
Oh no.
I know. Hard to believe. 2025 is winding down. And so, this call specifically, the conversation today, for those of you that are jumping on the call for the first time, these calls happen the first and third Fridays of the month, and they are traditionally interviews, and the topics rotate depending on who's being interviewed. And we interview top agents from all over the US and sometimes other countries on things that they are knocking out of the park on, whether it's systems, specific aspects of their business. People come and share freely within our community, which is amazing. And all of that was established based on the culture that my late husband, Council-Geha, created everywhere he went, which was one of people wanting to grow in their mindset and their skill set to continue to take their business and their lives to the next level. And so everywhere he traveled, he would give out his cell phone number. He spoke on stages all over and he would say, call me if you ever need anything. I'm happy to help. And people would call. And so eventually this call got created as a one-to-many conversation because people called and there was a lot of people calling. So he wanted to be able to help as many people as he could. And so these calls got started. And then when he passed in October of 2023, we decided to continue that legacy. And pay it forward to the community in real estate. And so, like anything, skill sets are transferable. The things that you'll learn or that we'll talk about on the call today, they're definitely going to be focused on business and you can apply them to business. However, they can be used in other areas and aspects of your life as well. So today we're going to jump in. We're concluding one year and getting ready to start another. And how many of you are excited about that or kind of nervous about that or indifferent about that, just based on whatever this year has been for you and what you're thinking is 2026 is going to be? What are you feeling? Just a quick check-in.
Well, I'm
Well,
personally really excited to get started with the new year and dive into real estate. So,
Okay, great. How about you, Mark?
I can relate to all of those feelings. I'm definitely nervous because I want my next year to be a lot better than my last year, but I'm making changes like being here to make that happen. I'm not just thinking about it, dreaming about it. Like I'm taking action.
That's fantastic. Love that. Hello, Lindsay.
Hi, hello. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I'm super excited. I'm really going to focus on revamping and launching my team again and having hopefully 5 agents on our personal team for this year, but then also recruiting, would like to recruit at least 30 or 40 agents to come on over. So that's the goal.
Love it. Love it, love it. Laura and Selena, what are you feeling about how we're wrapping up, how you're wrapping up, as you look at yourself in 2025 and what you're feeling about moving into 2026?
End of the year is always super busy. But I love Laura and I've been talking a lot about like what to change and what to shift for next year. And me personally, I'm very excited about the growth and the type of agents that we've had coming in and collaborating with. So I think it's going to be, I think this year was already incredible. We've been reviewing, what the performance has been on the organization as a whole, and it's been so surprising because of what other people hear about happening in the market. And then it's just exciting to think about what that looks like as it translates into the next year. So excited.
Yeah, and from my side of the business, what I'm related to, yeah, it's excited. It's not never boring. So I keep learning and keep trying to improve with the work and help with Selena. So it's exciting.
Love that. Francis, are you able to join us on audio or video?
Uh, yes, on audio, yes.
On audio, yes. All right. What are you feeling as we're wrapping up 2025 and getting ready to head into 2026?
Well, I haven't been active on 25, so I want to make a plan that I will really be able to follow, and then try to see if I can go back to business.
Fantastic. Well, we are happy to have you on the call today. All right, so we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to ask, it could be, a triggering question. How many of you have ever had the experience where you look at yourself and go, wow, I'm a goal setter, but I'm not necessarily a goal achiever. Like every year, I review the year, what worked, what could be improved. I set goals for the new year, and then I review them at the end of the year. And while I've made progress, I'm not actually achieving my goals, but I keep setting new ones. Anybody ever had that experience besides me?
I think we always do. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So this why I want to start the conversation with this because we're going to be talking about business and life planning actually is that that's a really important thing to check in from a mindset perspective. I remember it was a handful of years ago back, and I was in my other business. Every week we did check-ins on numbers and appointments and conversions. Every month we did reviews of the business, and every year we did, a recap and set goals for the next year. And about 13 years into doing that, years 11, 12, and 13, goal setting became a very discouraging process because even though I was making progress, I wasn't hitting the goals, and the goals that I wanted to hit were important because of what I wanted to do in my life. So, like by way of example, every year I would set a goal that I was going to be 106 and 100 or 106. I was going to be a size 6 and 155 pounds and 19% body fat. And then I would do nothing about it. But I really wanted that goal. And so every year I would revisit it, and sometimes I would work out. Sometimes I get on little kicks of eating healthy and working out and make some progress towards it. And then travel would pick up, and I would just find a reason not to do that. But every year I kept it. I'm like, because that's ultimately what I want to create, right? And what I noticed happened, and maybe you can identify with this as well, is that when you continue to set goals that you don't hit or that you're not executing action plans on to hit, and you know you're not going to hit them and you keep setting them, what happens or what can happen is that if what I say that I'm going to do, I don't do, it starts to impact the belief that I have in myself to be able to even do it.
mhm.
And so I got introduced to this concept that was really powerful, and it was the concept of setting goals aligned with values. So what I'm going to make sure that every person at the end of this call gets before we jump into the specifics is a values assessment. And our values aren't when I say values, I don't mean your beliefs or the things that are important to you. When I say values, it is based on what your life demonstrates, where you spend your time, where's the first place when you get money that money goes. What are you thinking about? What's in your physical environment? There's a whole assessment to take to determine what your values are. And the truth is, if something does not fall in your top three values, it is uh, it's a waste to set goals in that area because you're not going to execute. Because where things are high in your values, you'll be internally motivated. You're not going to need accountability. You'll be willing to go through delayed gratification over a period of time. You'll be consistent regardless of whether you feel like doing something or not because it's high enough in your values. You don't need someone to ask you about it. You don't need someone to challenge you on it. You don't need a reward system put in place because it sits high enough in your values that you do it and execute all day long, no matter what. And then the inverse is true as well, is that if something is low on your values, you'll need external motivation. You're going to need a high level of accountability. You won't be able to do it unless there's immediate gratification, like you just won't do it. And you'll procrastinate and hesitate if it's low in your values. And so, um, there was a seminar that I attended at one point, and it was on, building wealth, right, to create freedom, whatever your definition is of that. And the person that was facilitating it, just said, how many people, here want to be wealthy, like in the top 1% of what that would be like in the US. And so nearly every hand in the audience went up. There was a couple of thousand people in that audience. And then the next question was, how many of you are? And there was a very small number of people, less than 1% in that room. And what the facilitator said was the likelihood of the other 99% of you ever creating that is not going to happen. So you need to get out of the illusion that you're living in because wealth creation is not high enough in your values to actually do it. For the people that are there, it is high enough in their values and they've been consistent over time and execution to get themselves positioned in that way. And I remember thinking like, oh wow, that's really initially I thought, well, that's kind of a negative outlook and attitude. But then the more I thought about it, it's like, yeah, if someone doesn't have the values to support that they're going to create, it really is an illusion. In the same way, me putting on my goals every year that I was going to be a size 6 when I was a size 10 and 155 pounds when I was 165 to 70 pounds and 19% body fat when I was like 26, 27% body fat was not going to happen because I wasn't willing and hadn't been willing to execute the discipline of the activity that was going to take, taking care of myself and getting good sleep, the nutrition that was going to take, and all those things that would support doing that. And so I think this part of the conversation is really important when we go into number one. We're going to go through in just a minute an assessment so that you can get clear on what your point A is, where you are at today in truth, not like where you wish you would be or hope you would be, just based on evidence where you're at today. And once we get clear on what that point A is, and we're going to have a conversation around how do we create not just a business plan, but a life plan, because you can have the best systems in the world, but the human that shows up has got to be able to execute. And if you have a human that is not executing when they show up or that's not executing effectively, I don't care how great your business plan is. I don't care how great your marketing is. I don't care how great your knowledge base is. If you don't execute, if the human's not executing, nothing's going to come together. And so, what I'd like for you to do, for those of you that aren't driving, is to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm going to have you draw a box that's just, like a regular square box on a piece of paper. And then once you've got your box drawn on the piece of paper, and do it so that it takes up the majority of the page. Um, Once you've got your box drawn, hold it up so that I know that you're complete, and then we'll move on to what we're going to do next. This part is really important, and the opportunity here is to be really honest and to look in the mirror. And quite often, looking in the mirror can be like, I mean, how many times do I walk past the actual mirror in my house and I don't want to look in it because I don't want to see what's looking back? And that's what a lot of us do. We just like don't look, bury stuff, just ignore, avoid. I'll handle it later. I'll deal with it later. And so today we're not going to do that. We're going to take a good look. All right. So Mark's got his box drawn. Everybody else got their
How
boxes drawn.
big of a
Mallory,
box?
what's that? You take
How
up as
big of
much
a?
of the page as you want. The
Oh,
bigger the
okay.
better. Yep.
Bigger the better. Okay.
Yep. All right. So across the top of the box, I want you to write the word relationships across the top. And for this area of your life, this could be your relationship with yourself. It could be relationship with friends. It could be relationship with your clients. It could be relationship with significant other, with family, with friends. So when it comes, we'll start off with your relationship with yourself. Are you taking care of yourself the way that is optimal? Meaning, for your mental health and your physical health, the relationship that you have with you, I want you to start thinking about on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I in there? Don't write anything down yet because we're going to do relationships as a whole, but start to be thinking about like, how well am I taking care of myself? And then my relationship with me is going to be the foundation for the relationships that I have with other people. So when you start to take an inventory of the relationships in your life, whether that's family, friends, clients, I want you to put all of that in the relationship bucket. It could be your relationship with your word. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Or sometimes I do and I don't. Or I do it with other people, but I don't do that with myself. All of this has to do with relationship, right? So if I'm going to ask you to give yourself just right above the word relationship, give yourself a score, and you're not going to be sharing these necessarily. So it'll be private. It won't be revealed what your score is. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like totally failing, to 10, like I'm knocking it out of the park and I don't even see any areas that I can improve, that would be a 10. When it relates to that aspect of your life, the relationships, I want you to give yourself a score between 1 and 10 and write it above the word relationships. All right, so we're going to move on to the right-hand side of the box. And down the right-hand side of the box, I want you to write the word physical. And so on the physical side, Uh, this has to do with your health. How you take care of your health. What's your energy like? What's your mindset like? What's your attitude like? What's your mental health? What's your physical health? When it comes to the physical side of your life, like everything that fuels you, because let's be honest, everything requires energy, right? And some of us will go, oh, I'm tired. I don't have the energy, only because we don't realize that we are the people that generate energy, right? Energy comes from how we generate it, not if we wake up and have it or don't have it. Like we generate energy. Yet, what's your day-to-day experience of how energetic you feel? And your mindset and where it goes. And physically, do you feel strong in your body? Do you feel weak in your body? Do you feel sick in your body? Do you feel healthy in your body? So on a scale of 1 to 10, give yourself a rating and give that number on the physical side. And then across the bottom of the box, um, I want you to write the words mental and wealth. Mental and wealth. So this could be the business part of your life. It could be the financial part of your life. Um, it also is the mindset part of your life. If you function from abundance in your mindset or scarcity. So an abundant mindset was like, doesn't matter how busy I am, I always find the time. Doesn't matter from a financial perspective, there's an infinite amount of money. I know that if I want more of it, it's just a matter of creating it. So it's never that I don't have the money. I just haven't created it yet. Um, Versus a scarcity mindset of, well, I don't have the money. Well, I can't afford it. Well, I don't have the time. I'm just so busy. Right. So, under this area around your mindset around abundance and scarcity, as well as wealth, because if your mindset around abundance and scarcity will dictate the amount of wealth that you create or don't create in relationships and in money and in life. Right. So, give yourself a score, and this includes your business, right? What your business may have been in 2020, 25 up till now. So, give yourself a score 1 to 10 on that side, which would be the bottom of the box. And then we're going to move up to the left-hand side of the box. And on that side, I want you to write 2 words. Number one, I want you to write contribution. And then next to contribution, I want you to write the word spiritual. Now, that could be a belief system. It could be a faith. It could be none of that. It could be a connection to a higher something, whatever it is for you that's outside of you that you have connection with, and contribution. So in this area, this is where you contribute your time, your energy, your resources without ever thinking anything's going to come back to you in return. Are you aligned with whatever you believe and value? And does your life demonstrate that? And to what extent? Or are there places that are out of alignment there? Are you completely disconnected and bitter about it? There's all different kinds of things that can happen on this side. So give yourself a score from 1 to 10 on this side of the box as well. And now we're going to have some fun with your box because everybody's got their own. So what this box represents is all 4 aspects or areas of every human being. And if you've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, however, I've noticed this in life, is that I will see people that are like maybe really successful in business and look like they're 24 hours away from a heart attack, or really healthy and fit. However, there's always more month than money, or really great at relationships and have like a great community, lots of friends, lots of family, and have never turned that into any kind of business or freedom for themselves. And then every now and then you'll see people that when you look at them, and they're few and far between, they're giving focus and attention to all 4 areas and working to develop each area, maybe not with the same amount of intensity and energy, because usually one will take or two will take priority given, any given time. But they're definitely aware of and working on all areas. So when you look at the numbers that you have, we're going to turn this into something fun. So on the left-hand side where it says contribution and spiritual, I want you to go to the intersection of that side and the top of the box in that corner and draw a circle and put the number that you have on the spiritual side and the contribution side in that circle at the top left corner where those two intersect. On the top right corner, where it intersects with the right vertical side going down, whatever you wrote at the top, your top number that you gave yourself around relationships, I want you to put a circle at that corner and put that number in that corner. And then in the bottom right corner of the box, I want you to put the number that corresponds with that physical aspect and put that in the bottom right corner in that circle. And then in the bottom left corner, the number that you gave yourself the score for the mental wealth aspect. So now I want you to imagine that what this actually is a vehicle. And that those circles that you just put with the numbers in them are the tires on the vehicle that you're driving. And what those numbers represent is the size of the tire and how much air pressure is in there. And now I want to take some shares as you look at that. So if you've got an 8 in the top left corner and maybe it's 2 in the top right corner and a 7 in the bottom right and a 9 in the bottom left. And this is your vehicle, this is your car that you're driving through your life. I would love to hear from you on what the experience is based on what those numbers are for you. What's your experience?
Hitting a lot of potholes is looking pretty wonky. It's like,
Okay.
it's not very balanced.
So what happens if we were to add some acceleration? What's going to happen to the quality of the ride?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's gonna get some hang time, some air time.
Okay. So based on what yours looks like, you've got to go slow
Hmm.
because otherwise it's going to be so unbearably uncomfortable if you add acceleration to it. There's just not capacity to do that. Okay, cool. That's not unusual. Does anyone else have a different experience as you look at your box and your vehicle and your numbers?
Mine is like all in front wheel drive. So power in the front, not as much power in the back.
Okay.
So the
Anyone?
top left and top right are strong.
Okay. And then the rear, not so much.
It's only lacking a little bit actually. So it's just a little bit unbalanced.
Okay. So if we were to add some acceleration to yours, you probably wouldn't know. You as we got faster and faster, you would notice it, but not in the way that you would notice it in the way Mark's going to notice his. Sounds like.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Anyone else have a different experience they want to share?
Yes,
Okay.
this is Jesus, and I have this right here. I don't know if you can see it.
It's a beautiful box.
Yeah, it's a cube right there, and then but I probably put the numbers in different corners, but they just differentiate just one unit. So I have 2 8s and 2 9s. Just grading myself on those concepts, and I think that would be not a smooth ride, but a ride that is not balanced totally.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have a different experience they want to share?
Well, I cannot tell you mine because I got confused with the numbers, so I don't know. I don't know. I had two of the circles without the numbers because I didn't catch uh, where to put them.
Okay, so just without telling me where they go, what are the numbers that you have?
Well, I have a 9, I have an 8, 5, and a 2.
Okay, so imagine you could put those anywhere, and wherever it is that you put them doesn't matter, but just imagine that those are different tire sizes and different tire pressures, and now you're out driving in your life.
Yeah, well, that will be kind of a little uneven, right? Because of the 5 and the 2.
Yeah, it's a little bumpy. It's a little bumpy. So the opportunity that we have at the end of a year is to take an inventory of exactly where we're at in each area of life. I know we marketed this as business planning, but again, business side is one side of four sides of your life. And the other three are going to impact it. Like if you have a disaster going on at home and your relationships are all over the place, you're not going to do the same kind of business as if you have love and support at home and peace of mind and you're feeling very secure. Like you just, business is not going to look the same, right? It's not possible for it to look the same. And yet what most people will do is just be like, okay, well, I just need to focus. I just need to do more business, and then, whatever's happening in the personal side, just like, okay, we'll just leave that. And I don't see how I can fix it, or how it's going to get any better, even if I give time, attention, and energy to it. So it just is what it is, and I'm just going to focus over here. I'm going to say that's not the most effective. For a healthy, happy, fulfilled human, right? Because at the end of the day, what you're going to bring to your business life is everything that is components of who and where you're at personally. And so that's where these other areas become really important, right? And I'm thinking of like, Selena, can I use you as an example? Is Selena was living in California where she didn't have any blood and flesh relatives and decided to move to Houston where her grandbaby lives. And so the difference of the happy human seeing her grandbaby regularly versus still being with, her husband and son in California versus being with the grandbaby in Houston, night and day different from a personal level and on a personal level that then reaches into everything else, right? So every area and every side of the box is important. And so what we're going to focus on as we move into what we're going to talk about next is, okay, we take an inventory of where we're at in each one of those areas, and then here's what I'd like to say is it's not necessarily about being a 10 in all those areas. It's about how do I bring some kind of not balance, because I don't believe that balance really exists. Because if you're going to go for any one big goal in one area of your life, which if you're going for something big, generally you can do that on one side because of the amount of time and energy and focus it takes. And then the other ones, you can still have trailing goals, but it's not the same capacity as the major one that you're focused on. But that doesn't mean the other ones don't get attention. And so the idea is as you start to give attention to each side, maybe for 2026 predominantly what you're going to focus on as far as your goals is going to be the business side, because that's where it's the most important for you to focus, or that's where you want to make the biggest gain or the biggest jump, right? All right, well, that's fine. Let's put some infrastructure in place on the other three areas so that they're not just left behind or not looked at. And then it's okay if you're like, if you now start to look at your box and your sevens and eights all around, that's way different than a seven, a five, a four, and a two, right? And so, well, it's like the emergency broadcast system. Um, and so, any questions on that concept or that idea before we move on, or thoughts about it?
Yes, I have a question on the first three values. Top three values. What were those top three values that you mentioned? I skipped this.
That's great. Great question. So the values assessment is a questionnaire that we're going to send out at the end of this call to everyone that was on it. You're not going to know what your top three values are until you go through that assessment. You're going to answer 36 different things, and then it's going to help you sort them, and how you sort them based on how you answer will reveal what your top three values are,
All
right?
right, we wait for the end. Mhm.
Yep. So that will be an offline assessment that everyone has to do because that takes a bit. So we're not going to take the time to do it within the structure of this call. But the purpose of that, because I'm not going to have you setting goals today, I want you to get clear on the value behind that and each one, and then we'll send out the values assessment and you can set your goals from there. The idea being that you set goals that are aligned with the values that you have, right? And so when you set goals that are aligned with what your actual values are, and you'll know what your actual values are once you take that assessment, now you'll put yourself in a position where you're becoming a goal achiever versus a goal setter, right? So I'll give you an example of what having an aligned value with a goal looks like. I gave you the example at the beginning how every year I would set a goal on the physical side size 6, 155 pounds, 18, 19% body fat, and then have some kind of on-off structure throughout the year and never really hit it, right? And then my values around that side of my life changed when, um, out of nowhere in October of 2023, I watched my late husband Rick pass away in front of me in the course of 5 minutes, where 10 minutes before that he was fine. And so the physical side of my life, that event shifted how I started to look at that side of my life, right? Now, I went through like some intense grieving in the months following that. And so I wasn't focused on taking care of myself physically. I was having lasagna across the street and mud pie. And it's like, I'm grieving. I want to just comfort food and eat, right? But where the physical part came up next was that I had a really big surgery happening in August of 2024. And so it was, going to be 6 hours overnight stay at Stanford and, significant if things didn't go the way that they hoped that they would go. And so 3 months before that surgery, I decided to make a commitment to get ready for that surgery. And I hired a trainer. So this is on the physical side now, where I'd always had these goals my whole life, right? But something changed in my life. And then another thing changed in my life. And so initially I was just getting ready for surgery. So it was 3 days of training a week. By the second month, we changed nutrition. And then at the third month, I went in for surgery. But because of how I was feeling in that process and the change that I felt in my mind and in my body, I continued with that. And that was May of 2024 that it started. And I have never come off that training program, nor have I come off the nutrition protocol. So I have completely transformed that. And you can ask Selena, like, I will move business things in the day if for some reason I don't get my 5:30 a.m. time with my trainer, because that is that high of a value for me. It's a non-negotiable side of my life now. My character has changed, my values have changed, which is why it's important for you to retake the values assessment every quarter, because otherwise, if you're setting goals that are not aligned with where your values are actually at, you're going to find yourself goal setting, not goal achieving. My goal around the fitness side is I want to be able to bounce quarters off my behind. I don't have a numbers goal or a weight goal or a body fat goal anymore. I just figure, well, if I can do that, I'm going to be pretty healthy, right? So I'm in love with the process of doing it, and I'm committed to, like, I've changed who I am in that side of my life with that structure and that discipline, and those events supported that happening. So do I have goals that I'm going to set in that area or that I'm setting? Yeah, absolutely. But now I'm hitting them because I'm doing the things daily that are important to do to sustain all that. So translate that into whatever area that you want to translate it to when you look at that box, and know that, like, when you focus on one area, other areas are going to be impacted as well for whichever one you choose to focus on, right? So that is going to be the values part. So we're not setting goals on this for the business side. We're getting really clear on the inventory on the point A, and then the importance of getting clear on what your values are so that you can set goals that are aligned with those values. Okay?
All right. I have one last question.
Yes, go
Do
ahead.
you have a name for this box?
The box is called the Peace of Mind Square.
Thank you.
And the reason why it's called the Peace of Mind Square is when you are nourishing all aspects of what it means to be human, the end result of that is living with peace of mind, which not very many people do, or they go in and out of. It's kind of fleeting, right? And so there's not a secret, there's no secret to peace of mind. It is nourishing and giving attention and intention to all of the areas that fill our cups and have us fulfilled as people, as humans. And those are the areas where we give back, our relationships, if we have abundance or scarcity as a mindset, and then if we create time and financial freedom based on that, and our relationships with ourselves and others. Okay, so let's talk some real estate business because that's what the nature of these calls are, and talk about some goal setting, goal planning when it comes to that. How many of you had the year that you wanted to have in 2025 and are just excited to go do a repeat of that in 2026? No?
I
How many
don't
of you, if I asked you the question, what's the amount of volume that you've closed year to date? What was the average commission based on that volume? And how many appointments it took for you to get the contracts, whether those were buyer or listing appointments? How many of those you had to go on to, how many of those you had to have set up to actually attend, to actually convert to buyers or listings to sell? How many of you know what those numbers are for your business? All right, thank you for your honesty. So, Selena, what would you say about that?
Nobody ever knows their numbers. Like nobody ever knows their numbers. That's not true. I was just on a group coaching call earlier and they were presenting someone who absolutely tracked every single thing and knew her numbers inside and out. Um, I feel very strongly about numbers for those of you that know me because you know I'm analytical and I believe it's most people will ask me, they're like, well, you just want to babysit my numbers. And I'm like, no, numbers tell you a story. So every single, when you know those numbers, they can give you feedback in sometimes not a great way, but sometimes in a really great way of what's working, what's not, where you can shift and change what you're doing. So it's never about micromanaging. It's about what is the story telling you and where can you make tiny, even tiny shifts that will change everything about what the next year looks like. I asked someone yesterday, they actually had a pretty decent year. And I said, what was your best lead source? And they said, I don't know. And I said, well, you know, they closed a good number of transactions. It was actually over 30, but they didn't really have any idea where they'd come from. And so it's, you know, when you don't track those types of things, you're holding yourself back because you actually don't know what you should work on or what you're good at and what can and cannot work for you in the coming year.
Thank you for sharing that. So, if it's worth doing, it's worth measuring. And if you are a business person in real estate, so this is going to differentiate a salesperson to a business person. Salesperson's just going to go out there and sell real estate, but they're not necessarily going to have a business, and you may not stay in the industry if you're not treating your business like a business and running it like a business. So the first thing that we want to create awareness around is getting to know what those were for this year, if you have some way of going and recreating them. And if not, starting with attention and intention. And Selena, we have a tracker we can share with everybody on that, as well as the values assessment that will track those activities and behaviors so that before you start to get frustrated with the results that you don't have, you have an accurate picture, because in our minds we always feel like we're working way more than we actually are. And sometimes what we're doing is things that keep us busy versus revenue producing activities for the business. And if you're not tracking your numbers, you may fall into the trap of letting your emotions be managed by the expectations of what you think should be happening versus why it's not, because you're not doing the numbers or the activities to actually make that happen. And so there's this concept or this idea of setting yourself up playing to win versus playing not to lose. So playing to win is I'm going to know exactly what my numbers are. I'm going to know exactly how many conversations there are for me to have to be able to get an appointment with someone. I'm going to know exactly how many appointments there are for me to go on, whether those are buyer consultations or listing presentations. How many of those do I need to go on to get the contract, and how many contracts I've got to get to actually close the contract. And then I can look at what was the volume that I did for the year. In other words, what's the average price point that I'm working within? And what's my average commission for all of those? And So 2026 can be your foundational year to start to know what those things are, to go, okay, now I have 2026 can be your point A for that if you haven't been doing that up till now, to go, okay, here was this year. Now moving forward, I'll be able to set goals and objectives 2027 moving forward because I've got some kind of framework to go off of in the 2026 year where I'm treating my business like a business, not a hobby. Hobbies cost money. Businesses generally make money. And I'm treating my business like a business. I'm not just being somebody that's out there selling real estate. I'm not just a salesperson. Not there's anything wrong with being a salesperson, but I'm a business person that is in the sales profession. And a business person is going to know their numbers and how to manage a business. There's a concept called red light, green light, where you work and spend based from profits. And if you don't have profits, you're not spending, right? So some people will go throw a bunch of money at business, which would put them in the red and because they're not functioning from profitability, right? And then they can't stay in the business because they're paying to play versus working to play. There's a big difference between paying to play and working to play in the business. And so those metrics, I just heard, what was it? It was, it's a call that we were on yesterday, and it was, you know what? I'm going to grab it because I wrote it on the envelope, and I was like, oh, that's a really handy number to have to manage energy and expectations. And it was that to get an appointment, on average, to get an appointment for most people, it's 23 attempts for an appointment and 36 for a closing. So how many appointments do you need to have for the year to dictate how many number of closings you're going to have and what's the income you want to make? Now, if you want to take a 25,000-foot view of the business and just, I have no idea because I haven't been tracking my numbers, but I want to make X amount for the year. Take the volume. So let's say we'll use 20 million in volume if you're new to this and just doing it for the first time. We'll take 20 million in volume, and depending on your average price point, that would dictate the number of actual transactions that is for you. And so 20 million in volume, and let's do that, and let's say your average commission is 2.5%. That's going to be a 500,000 in GCI before you're on any splits. You're on an 80-20 split depending on where you're at for a lot of companies. And before any costs of doing business, right? That's just, ballpark. And so if your average price point is 500,000, you would divide 20 million by 500,000. And what's the number that you'd come up with based on number of transactions you got to do?
40.
40 transactions at 500,000 to do 20 million in volume and 500,000 in GCI. These are just like ballpark numbers, right? So you want to have 10 million in volume at 2.5%, 20 transactions. It's going to be 250,000 at an average price point of 500,000 per home, right? So it starts to give you some idea, and that doesn't count any costs of doing business. That doesn't count your MLS dues. That doesn't count your any splits or fees that you may have attached to doing your business. That's just gross right off the top. And so when you start to look at, okay, what's the income that I want to generate from my business in 2026, you can start to I like to just do those like rough numbers as targets. And then, okay, I'm going to track my spend. If I would recommend this, if you don't have it set up, have a completely separate bank account, checking account dedicated 100% to real estate, particularly if you're not full-time in real estate yet, or if you're working to become full-time in real estate, or if you have multiple businesses. You have a checking account that is dedicated 100% to real estate. So that when you have commissions that come in, you're paying expenses for the business out of that account. And then my other recommendation as you're setting goals in this area is that you have a separate account that you earmark for taxes. And that right off the top, because this is a big switch for people that are used to being employed somewhere else and having that taken care of, right off the top, I would take 20 to 25% straight off the top. So you get a $10,000 commission check, put somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 in a separate account called your tax account. And if you've got extra at the end of the year, great. You can reinvest that in the business, and otherwise you're not doing what most realtors do, which is be late for their taxes and now start to create a debt flow versus a lead with revenue profit flow. So these are important things to think about when you're business planning for the year of like, well, okay, what's the amount of business I want to do based on the amount that I want to gross? What am I going to take home from that? And knowing that things become very important in that business plan, like where are you skilling up? Where are the places that you're committing resources and funds from your business? And maybe that goes in a separate account that's your education account that you're getting to events, right? And so maybe you take 10% off the top of that $10,000, right? So 10% off the top would be $1,000 goes into your education and business account. This is where you're funding, you're getting to industry events and things that are going to help you grow yourself and grow your business. So maybe 1,000 comes off the top for that. 2,500 to 3,000 of that $10,000 commission check goes into your tax account. So that leaves you, if you did that, 3,000, 1,000, that would leave you with $6,000 that you can live or do whatever or handle any other business expenses that you're going to handle, right? But you start to put a structure in place from day one to treat your business like a business and not go, okay, well, I'm just going to live on all of that money, and I'll take taxes out of the next one. Well, I can't afford to go to an event. Like, don't ever have that come out of your mouth or enter your mind of you can't afford to go to an event because you're not doing enough business. No, you're generating the business because you're treating your business like a business and you're allocating like a business person would for your growth. Like your business is never going to outgrow the level that you grow yourself. And so investing in yourself to continue to do that on an ongoing basis is the number one thing you want to do with your business is to make sure the IRS is handled, right? And then we can talk about your living expenses and growing that. If you want to read a great book and go, well, that doesn't leave me enough to live on. If you want to change that dynamic for yourself, there's a great book called How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven by Dr. John DeMartini. And he talks about this idea of quarterly increasing the progressive savings regardless of what your income's doing into different areas. So every quarter you save a progressive more for saving and investing. Every single quarter that number continues to go up. And what that does is it drives a different set of behavior because now the amount that's left to live on is less and less as you're handling these buckets, and quarterly more is going up for investing and saving. And what it does is it will drive a different set of behavior for you and your business to go create more. And does it work? Yes, it does work because I used it in 2008 when I filed bankruptcy and was cash only on everything and thought it was the most ludicrous idea ever. Because how would that even work? And it is how I completely changed the financial situation that I was in by following the principles in that book, How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven. And when you start to understand the principles of money and how money works in business and life, this is another really important thing, right? So it's going to be how you value yourself. That's going to translate into, oh, will you do it for 1%? No, I won't do it for 1% because I value myself and the value that I'm going to deliver to you and the service that I have to offer. And so when you get your financial house in order as you're doing your business, how you value yourself, how your clients value you, and what you get paid to be the professional that you are in the industry is going to continue to increase and grow over time. And this is a thing that most people miss, many people miss, which is why if you look at the national average, 2.5 transactions on average per agent, nobody's living on that as a real estate agent. Nobody's living on that. So if you really want to have a business in real estate, it's going to require a different approach and an approach of you treating yourself like a business professional and you treating your business like a business. So quick recap of where we've been at today, and then we'll open it up for questions before we wind up the call. So number one is everybody's got a set of values. They're like a thumbprint. They're unique to you. Take the values assessment quarterly to make sure that the areas that you've got goals in or you're putting attention, energy, and focus are aligned with your values. There's a way that if something is not in your values and you want it to be, there's a way to move that up. You can reach out to me and I can tell you what that is if after you take the assessment, like let's say, for example, wealth creation is in one of your values, and it shows up as like number 6 after you take the assessment. It's not in the top 3, so it's not happening for you. Does that mean it can't happen for you? No. It means you got to get wealth creation in the top 3 in your values, and there's a whole process for doing that, which is for, another call, another conversation. Mark.
Are you referring to a particular assessment?
Yes, the assessment that we're going to email out to all of you at the end of the call. It's called the values assessment.
Thank you.
Yep. So you'll get your values assessment at the end of the call. Take it. Everybody's got their inventory that they did. You've got your vehicle for what all 4 sides of the different areas of every person's life entail. And so you have your point A of where that inventory is. You're going to take the values assessment, look at your point A in all those areas. And then from that, set whatever your goals are going to be for the 2026 year aligned with those values. And then what there is to do is like the more you check in on what's working and what can be improved, and if you're really serious about getting stuff done, having that conversation with yourself daily. Okay, what was effective today? And what could I improve from today tomorrow? And you want to do that daily and then weekly on a recap, like what do I want to get done this week? And for where you're the areas that you're moving goals forward. And okay, did I get it done? No. What became more important? Okay, great. What worked? What could be more effective moving into next week? And you're constantly in that conversation of fine tuning, tracking your activities as you go based on whatever your goals are for the year. And like if you create from a place of nothing, right? Just be like, here's what my intention is, here's what my goals are, and I'm going to work this plan all year long, a plan that's aligned with my values so I can be a goal achiever versus just a goal setter. And by the way, if you've never made more than $100,000 in real estate for the year, and you go, okay, well, my goal this year is to make 900,000. We call that hope dope unless you have a really incredible plan and strategy that you're going to execute. And if you like, sometimes people will set goals based on what they want, which is great. However, if you've never done that before and executed to even create a portion of that, what if you set a goal and said, "Hey, I've never made 100,000 in real estate and 2026 is going to be my year." And so then you get an action plan behind that and you start working that plan and you hit that. From there, you can move, right? And go, okay, well, 100, I'd never done that before and now I have. So you have a different reference point to set a goal from, right? Versus like I've never made 100,000 in real estate, but my goal this year is to make 500,000 in real estate, right? It's not necessarily setting yourself up to win because you don't have the habits, disciplines, skill set to do that because you've never even done it at 100. So when you're setting your goals, like Rick would always talk about setting big, hairy, audacious goals, which is great. I recommend that you set them in what I call like a no shit, no kidding. Like if my kid's life depended on me executing and doing this, this is the goal that I'm going to set and I'm going to work towards this plan. And then maybe I have this big, hairy, audacious goal that once I hit that, if I hit it early in the year, I'll keep moving towards that one and get a lot further. But everybody's got a different way to do it. That's the way I like doing it. Some people will say, oh, just, set the big, hairy, audacious goal and then you'll get further than you would have if you had a smaller goal that you set. For me, I like to treat goals like when I'm serious about it, and I'm not always serious about it when I do it. Sometimes I just do it because I know I need to do it. But when I'm serious about doing it and I treat that goal seriously, I know that my execution of it will build credibility and belief in myself, or it's going to destroy my self-esteem. So around my fitness, I'm like non-negotiable 3 times a week. When I travel, it's 2 times a week. And if I'm out of pocket the whole week, I am like I did in Miami. I am finding a place to go train and getting training while I'm on the road because that is my commitment. No shit, no kidding. Right? Based on my goals is that consistency, right? So what are you going to hold yourself to? And is it high enough in your values to hold yourself to that on the business side? And if not, reach out to me directly and I'll give you the exercise to do to get the business side up in your life. All right, so that was a ton of information. Thoughts, questions, comments?
Well, I appreciate your approach because I know it's very different from all the other ones, and that's the reason why I signed for the um, session. And I'm looking for something to really motivate me to do this because I come from the medical field, and you don't have to keep on running for clients there. they come to you. So um, that's one of the things that I think it is hard for me, to keep on looking for clients. Mhm.
Yeah. So, you said something about motivating yourself, and this is where the values assessment's going to come into play because the things that are high in your values, you're already going to be internally motivated about. So, when you tie, like, maybe you don't like making calls, or maybe you don't like going to open houses, but if you tie that activity to how it helps you meet one of your three highest values, and now that's what you're thinking about every time you engage in that behavior or that activity, it's going to change the relationship that you have to it, right? So, it could be every family that I serve um, is one step closer to whatever that goal is that you have for yourself that will happen when you're hitting those goals. And so the connection is to that. So it's like you wake up and you go, who am I going to serve today? Who can I serve? Can I find one person to help serve today? In this context, in the space of real estate. And if I find that one person by 9 o'clock, can I find another one before lunch? And then that's what you're in conversations with, and that's your attention, and that's your intention when you're engaging with people. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for being on the call today.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so in your if everyone would just take a moment and put the best email for you in the chat so that Selena can make sure and you get the values assessment and then you get the habits tracker, the daily success habits tracker, which will track the revenue producing activities for your real estate business. And then additionally, the tracker for as you're doing the business, uh, the your your average commission, your volume, like the breakdown of your expenses so that you can start to like really see the numbers of your business and have a place to plug those in. We'll email you those three things as assets for your business. This call recording will be posted on Empire Builders Pro under the resources tab under Free Friday coaching calls, where all of our other calls and call recordings are housed as well. And then thank you guys for being on the call today. Great to see all of you. And let's finish 2025 strong and be really clear before 2026 happens on what it is that you want and that you've got an action plan or a game plan in place. If any of you need help or support in creating that or want a set of eyeballs to look at it, Selena and I can do that for you and give you some honest feedback. If you need a little come to Jesus, so to speak, I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but like okay, well, you're smoking hope dope. Let's reset. We'll be happy to do that for you. Or if it's like, you are like way too conservative and let's stretch a little, we'll have that conversation with you as well. We're here to help in any way we can. So thank you guys for being here. We appreciate and value each of you and make it a great rest of the year and have a happy and safe holidays, everyone.